Welcome back. Good evening, guys. It is another great episode of the ABNF Podcast. I'm here with my buddy Nick. Nick, how we doing? Happy Tuesday, man. NBA playoffs been crazy. A lot of things have happened. So how we doing?
Doing good, man. Just been doing the normal adult life kind of stuff, working and all that. But when I get the chance to watch any basketball games that I can, been tuning into some. And obviously, there's been some great games this playoff so far, to be honest with you. Obviously, there's been some blowouts,
Oh, of
you know,
course.
like there's been a lot of close games, so it's been a very intriguing playoff so far.
No,
Much better than
100%.
expected, to be honest, so far.
I will say I do know that I was not that impressed with the East just because of the matchups and stuff. And I gotta give it. I mean, the Knicks Pistons series has been really chippy. Same thing with the Pacers and Bucks series. I know that obviously with like the Bucks Pacers have just shown that they're a much better team, but it has been very chippy in that series too. And I think we're seeing it a lot on the Western Conference. Like every series definitely has been having a lot of tensions rising.
Yeah.
So it's good to see this, man, because we've seen the last couple of years everybody's been buddy buddy with each other, and we haven't really seen this type of intensity. So, Nick, we got two series that have already ended, both sweeps, both
Yep.
by the number one seeds, which we were not surprised. So we're still perfect. We're still perfect on our brackets right now. I don't
Yeah.
know how much longer because if Milwaukee loses today, we already got one wrong.
Well, you would get one wrong.
Did you have the Pacers?
I had the Pacers. I
Okay,
had the Pacers winning that one. But it
then
looks
I will
like
be
we're gonna
wrong.
lose. No, I mean, I had the Lakers going to the finals. So I mean, they're about
Hey,
to
I
lose.
mean, I'm
So
not gonna lie with you, brother. I was right there with you too. So if they lose
yeah.
tomorrow, yeah, I got I,
I think
I
I
I got a
think
lot of explaining.
no, and I think you also took I think you took the Clippers over the Nuggets, right? I took the
I
Nuggets.
took the Nuggets. I
You took
didn't.
the Nuggets
No,
too.
I did
Okay.
take the Nuggets. I thought that they would win that series just because of Jokic. I didn't think that. I also was worried about like just like you, Kawhi's leg. I think that that's like one of the biggest fears that I have is he hasn't been healthy since the bubble was the last
Yeah,
time where he didn't have an injury and playing in the playoffs. So that was
yeah.
my biggest concern. So I'll let you though choose Nick. Which series you want to talk about first? We can talk about the OKC Thunder and Memphis Grizzlies series, or we can talk about the Miami Heat and in Cleveland series. So which
Yeah.
one do you want to talk about?
We'll just start off with the Cleveland Miami. I
All right.
mean, I hate to say it, man, it was flat out embarrassing those last games for Miami. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you game six, you lose by I don't know the exact number. Was it 30? It was 30 some points.
So they
30,
lost by 37 in
37
game three.
points. And then so you think they would come out ready to play because
Mhm.
they got flat out embarrassed. You're down by 40 at halftime. 40. It got to the point where they already took out Kenny Atkinson already took out Mitchell and all the starters in the third quarter. Cleveland could have literally won by 60 if they wanted to.
Well, Miami had to go on a 5-0 run to end the game, man. They can only lose by 55, so it yeah, it was bad. But like you said, man,
Tyler Hero was awful at that last game too.
oh yeah, he was not good. I just also think like this whole series, man, we knew that Cleveland was not going to have an issue beating Miami. And I know that I think we both had picked Atlanta to beat Miami in that play-in game, but I know that I had Cleveland winning in four even against Atlanta. And with Miami, we just expect more because it's an Eric Spoelstra led team. You still have pieces like Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, and you would expect them to at least maybe steal a game, which I think their best chance would have been game two
Yes.
to do it. I know they lost by 9 in that game. But Nick, like they averaged less than 100 points this whole series. I mean, and it's really because of the last two games. Like they scored 83 in game four, 87 in game three. And like you said, Tyler Hero, man, nowhere to be found in that game. And he said that they were not gonna get swept in this series. So obviously his words coming back to bite him, which it's not surprised, but 4 points off of 1 of 10 from the field.
I actually got a question for you. Some of these I don't really pay attention to like these sports shows and stuff. I try to stay away from it, but they actually
Hmm.
asked a very interesting question regarding the Miami Heat. Because Bam, I don't know if you heard about Bam Adebayo's post-game interview, his press conference. He goes, "Yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes made this summer."
Oh, I did see that.
So I don't know if he's referring to himself or he's referring to the Miami Heat organization. Like he's already been told certain things are already going to happen. I want to ask you this question: Do you think it's time for Pat Riley to step down?
Yeah. I think he's unfortunately at this point he is just getting up there and you know we love, our senior citizens and people that, are part of our lives, but it's just like, like our grandparents and stuff, once you get to a certain age, you just get stuck in your ways and you're not going to change your ideology about how you want to run things. And it's been shown throughout time. I mean, all these organizations that are run by old owners, the mentality is just, they're going to be what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like Miami right now, I think with the whole Jimmy Butler situation, really showed like, hey, Pat Riley, like you're a smart guy, man. Like we're not denying that you haven't built some great teams. Like these Miami teams, even with the pieces that they had, obviously Eric Spoelstra is a great head coach. In the last couple of years, we've seen these teams where it's like, you know, there was some vision there. We didn't expect these teams to get far, but I mean, they made two NBA finals in the last 5 years. So you
Yeah.
have to give credit on that. But I do think that the way the Jimmy Butler situation was handled, I really do think like it was almost like a detriment to Miami in itself because even though Miami could have probably gotten more for Jimmy Butler, I just think a lot of things that went down really affected his obviously his value, but also I just think Pat Riley's unwillingness to want to offload him as well. And it's just kind of like, look, I understand that you're trying to make it work, but clearly this person does not want to be here. He has done this multiple times before. You need to
Mhm.
get the hint that your way is not going to work this time.
Yeah.
Um, I guess for you, Nick, what do you think? Do you think it's just Pat Riley? Do you think it's going to also be a lot of personnel shifts? Do we see some of these guys get, shipped off? Is this going to be a rebuild around Tyler Hero?
I mean, I personally don't believe Pat Riley is going to go anywhere. I don't think
Really?
he's going anywhere. I think he should walk away.
Mm,
I agree with you there. Do I think he's actually going to? No, I don't think so. I think he loves the game too much.
yeah.
Just like you said, like he could look at it like we literally made the finals 2 of the last 5 years.
Right.
So in the East, if you really think about it, like they've, I guess, somewhat dominated. Even like the 1 year they made the finals, they were in the play and all that kind of stuff too. But just like you said, how he handled the Jimmy Butler situation. What's really interesting is after that whole Big Three experience ended with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, besides Jimmy Butler, they have not been able to land any big free agents. Like when Damian Lillard was available, they weren't able to get him. When Kevin Durant was available, they weren't able to get him. Like Miami, they have to. Everyone talks about how great the Heat culture is. They have to change the culture if they want players to start going to Miami.
Yeah, I think that like I think with the Dame one, that
Mhm.
was also just a very weird situation where I don't know what was going behind the scenes, but obviously like Dame wanted to come to Miami, but there was things that were going on that we'll never know what exactly was being said behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But it just seems to me, I think either I know Pat Riley really valued Tyler Hero. I think that was one of the biggest pieces that he did not want to move off of.
Yeah.
And I think that that was the thing that really held up that trade was like, hey, we're not going to give up, a guy we value a lot. And
Mhm.
again, it's kind of the same thing with like Jimmy Butler in that sense, like, hey, we really value this guy. We don't want to give him up. You got to give us like something that we're convinced is going to like lead us. And he knew that realistically, nobody was going to trade a star for a star. It was going to be role players and draft capital, and that's going to be what you're going to get. And Miami has made the conference finals. Let's think about this. They made the conference finals three times in 5 years.
Yeah.
So twice to the NBA finals. I think that right now, like I don't disagree with you that Pat Riley probably won't go anywhere. I think he should, but I also do think that it's time for Miami to consider what they want to do. They have a pretty young team. I mean, if you look at some of the guys on their team, Jaime Jaquez was a rookie last year. Khalil Ware was a rookie this year. Tyler Hero is still pretty young. Davion Mitchell, who they acquired, solid like defensive guard.
Yeah, I
Andrew
like.
Wiggins isn't even that old either. So like you have some pieces. And
Yeah,
again, we don't know what Bam's future is going to be. Does he get traded? Because maybe he's hinting at like, hey, I'm not going to be here this much like that much longer. Like there's going to be a lot of moves, and you guys better be ready to see what's about to happen.
yeah.
Um,
I hear you. No,
yeah,
I hear you about Miami for sure. It's um, just disappointing to see how they were the last two games. Cleveland blew them out early and stuff.
yeah,
Congrats to Cleveland. Cleveland, they're looking like they are like a legit contender. Everyone questioned it a lot. Like, was this like, remember Atlanta the one year made the one seed? Like, is Atlanta really a contender? And then as soon as they ran into LeBron and Cleveland, they got smoked in the conference semis. So,
yeah.
I mean, I still believe Indiana's going to win the series. So I think Indiana's going to give Cleveland a tough test, but
Mhm.
we'll see what happens with that one. But I don't know if you want to dive into, we could dive into the Oklahoma one, which that
For
was another
sure.
sweep.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I just want to say real quick, I want to give props to Cleveland. They handled their business. They are one of the deepest teams in the league. They're
Mhm.
going to have I would say, a pretty easy time getting to the conference finals. Like I do think right now, Milwaukee's
Yeah.
up one with 17 seconds left. We'll see. But if Indiana ends up holding on to this series, I do think that Cleveland is going to take care of them as well. So, but we can definitely head into that OKC Grizzlies series. Nick, I think one of the biggest things that we saw in game one was just OKC's pure dominance and just the Grizzlies just looking flat that game. I mean, 51 point blowout in game one is kind of crazy considering that OKC had a week of rest, and usually it's the team that has all that rest that looks rusty, not the team that just came off another playing in the play-in just a couple days prior.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts on this series?
Well, overall, what was very interesting is, Shea had like big scoring nights. Like he was still consistently putting up high 20s in the 30s and stuff. If you look at his field goal percentages, those first three games, he was shooting like 10 of 31, like stuff like that. So like, he wasn't hitting the shots at the volume that he normally hits them at. He
Mhm.
wasn't as efficient, but you see how good his supporting cast is, man. Jalen Williams is legit. He's definitely legit. Chet Holmgren is really good. They got a lot of their on-ball defenders, especially from the guard spot, is ridiculous. When Alex Caruso comes in the game, he can guard anybody. Lou Dort comes into the game, he can guard anybody. They got guys like Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins. They have all these young, energized players that just know how to play together. It's just what it comes down to, and it's phenomenal coaching. I knew Memphis wasn't going to do much in this series. That's why I know we both mentioned that Dallas would have given them a
Yeah,
better competition.
yeah.
But we never thought that Dallas was like a serious threat to Oklahoma, anyways. But
But their size.
yeah, I just think John Morant is slipping a little bit. Desmond
Mhm.
Bain kind of took a dive this year a little bit too. I think he only averaged like 18 points a game. Jaren Jackson, like they still have a decent roster, so I'm interested to see what Memphis is going to do. And obviously, too, um, Jenkins got fired when they were the fourth,
Mhm.
I believe, at the time or something like that too. So that kind of like I think after that happened, I just assumed that the players weren't happy about it and they just wanted to get the season over with. It seemed like the way that they were playing.
You
Like they
know,
should have won. They had one chance. They had a chance
I
to
was
win
gonna
that.
say,
They should have won.
I was gonna say, so the first two games of the series, it just felt like OKC was the much better team. They had a very like diverse amount of scoring happening. Like it wasn't just one player that was dominant, but like you also mentioned, like SGA did put up his numbers in this series,
Yeah.
but it felt like the whole team was very balanced in their attack, and you could just tell that Memphis just didn't have enough. But I think there's a couple things for that. I think one, like you said, Jenkins, getting fired, not really having a good offense in place as well. I don't. think that this offense they try to implement this year really worked in their favor, especially once the firing happened. It just kind of felt like they were on a nosedive. And then also the John Morant injury in game three. And I feel terrible because Memphis was up in that game by 27 before the injury happened. Um and this is something too, Nick, I want to ask a question about. Do you feel like people just want to blame others for like a player of their like a favorite player of theirs or just like a star player getting injured as hey, this was intentional, like you were trying to take me out of this? Because I can see like the shoulder. I understand, Ja got up there and just the way that Lou Dort came in with his shoulder, sliding over. I can see where some people would think that's dirty.
Mhm.
I didn't necessarily think it was dirty. I think that we just sensationalize things in the moment because that's what we think, because that player is really good. And if you injure that player, then they really have no chance of beating you. So, what did you think about that?
No, that's a really good question. I don't think there was any intentions to
Hmm.
go out there. This wasn't like an 80s, 90s play where you literally clothesline somebody, you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, but I mean, I just think John Morant is just one of those players where he just gets freak accident injuries that just happen to him, man. He just has bad luck. It's interesting where like it's like those point guards that are so athletic are the ones that never can go through an entire career with not that many injuries. Penny Hardaway was one. Obviously, we all know what happened with Derrick Rose, John Morant, like these young point guards that are super athletic. That means they're using their legs more. They're not shooting a lot of jumpers. They want to get to the rim. They want to dunk over people. They want to get, layups and all that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
once you get to the lane, especially in the postseason, teams are going to be more physical with you. They want you to feel them like, yeah, we're here. We're not giving you these easy lives like you would get in the regular season. The regular season, postseason basketball play, it's just different. And when we get to another player from a different team, people would understand, well, why that is.
No, and I do think unfortunately, freak injuries do happen. Um, we've seen it a couple times in these playoffs already. Injuries happening. Jimmy Butler is another one with the contusion on his tailbone. And you could tell yesterday when he was playing, like it's bothering him still. Um, and I think that I think one of the things too with Memphis is they just don't have a I, I'm like losing my words right now. Sorry. They don't have a playmaker or a shot creator for others. Outside of Ja, I feel like Ja really likes to play at a fast tempo, loves to play in the fast break type of situation, and everybody else on that team doesn't necessarily play in that style when he's not on the floor. So you could tell that they really struggled to be able to hold a lead because you didn't really have that energy the way that you did in the first half.
Yeah.
And I also do think, man, like I know Jaren Jackson Jr. was a defensive player of the year a couple of years ago, but for me, I don't know what's happened to him, but it just feels like his impact isn't there anymore. I don't know if you feel that way, but it just seems like he's out there. But on the defensive end, I don't really feel like he puts any pressure. Like I felt like Chet Holmgren and like Isaiah Hardenstein were able to get theirs and really like I didn't really feel like he affected anything of this like 2 years ago when he played against the Lakers. Like I felt like there were certain games where he definitely played AD very well. But like 2 years removed from that, it just seems like what happened to him.
Yeah, I just know he's been banged up too. He's had some injuries
Hmm.
too in the past and stuff like that. I don't know if it was this year, but I think it was last season. Didn't he miss like a good chunk of the first half of the season or something like that?
I think so.
Something
I
like
mean,
Yeah, I don't remember the injury, but like I remember like I don't think it was this year. It was last season. He missed like the first like 3 months of the season or something like that. If if I remember correctly, but I'm not really sure. But no, I hear you about Jaren Jackson overall, though. His defense has slipped a little bit. I still think he's a great defender when he really wants to be. Um, yeah, he just didn't really show it every night like he used to, man. I just think, just like you said, um, the scoring just hasn't really been there around Ja really so much. And Jaren Jackson had to really step up his game offensively. So when you
Mm.
have to step up your game offensively, sometimes you just don't have the energy to be guarding the best guy and at 100% effort on every single defensive possession. So but yeah, we'll see what happens with Memphis in the future. Though, hopefully they could get some players that fit Ja's game more. I completely agree with you. Ja wants to play a fast paced style, but the current team, there's no players that really match the style
That
that Ja.
energy, like Desmond Bain is a really good scorer, but I don't see him as like a guy that like wants to run out on the fast break. Zach Edey is tall and slow. Like he is not the kind of guy that's going to be running out with you on the fast break. You need a teammate like Jalen Green that loves that type of energy, that wants to just bounce, or even like I would probably think of like even I don't know why I cannot think of anybody right now, but you need an energizer bunny like type of player with you. And I just think again, it's so hard right now with the way that Memphis is constructed. And they are a pretty big team. They have some like bigger guys on this team. So I do think as well, I do want to call this out real quick. Our boy AC Fresh, Alex Caruso had some of the biggest plays in game three, especially down the stretch. OKC really chipped away at that lead in game three. They were down 10, like heading into the fourth quarter. And there were a couple possessions that you saw where it was just a one-on-one matchup, and Alex Caruso was able to poke the ball away. In like two straight possessions, he did the same exact thing, and it was like it just seemed like Memphis just didn't know what to do, and it led out to the fast break, easy bucket opportunity for the Thunder, and then Memphis stayed into it, and then it just kind of was like you could just see all that momentum leave Memphis after that last turnover that they had. And that was just when like I knew like, okay, this is gonna be a sweep. Unfortunately, Ja's not coming back, and you just kind of knew it was over.
No, absolutely. No, for sure.
Um, but enough talking about those two series because I feel like those were the ones that we knew what was going to happen. We've been talking about OKC since we started this podcast. So I feel like this is a team that we know how good they can be. I think this is a team that we probably should have picked to make it to the finals when we had the chance because we can't just be like, oh, well, I'm going to change it now. But if I was to pick another team, I think OKC definitely has the strongest chance for sure. They've showed that they can play, nine guys, 9, 10 guys right now in the playoffs, and they look really good. Nick, we're gonna go to um, what series I want to talk about just because it did just end right now. So the Pacers did win
Oh,
game
wow.
five, 119 to 118 in overtime. And the reason I want to talk about this series is because of not only the chippiness that Damian Lillard gave in game one and just continued to be there, obviously, until he got hurt in game four, but I just feel like there's going to be a lot of change in Milwaukee. We just talked about Miami, but you had Indiana. I had Milwaukee. I had Milwaukee because I really thought if Dame and Giannis can play together, I felt that they were good enough to beat this team because they weren't healthy last year. They didn't have Giannis in the series last year, and I didn't feel like Indiana really had changed their team a lot. I thought they Giannis would be enough to beat them, but clearly that wasn't the case. So what were your thoughts on this series?
It kind of went as expected for me personally. I remember I was texting you during game one when I think Indiana was starting to pile it on them. Giannis had a great game. They had a great game plan game one. Let
Mhm.
Giannis cook, shut everyone else down. That's exactly what they did. That is
You mean
exactly what,
Kyle Kuzma, Tony Snell numbers over here?
like they didn't let role players get open for threes. They go, hey, listen, we're gonna play Giannis one-on-one. If he goes for 40, he's gonna go for 40. But we're gonna shut everyone else down. Dame ain't there. They don't have really a second scorer. So that's how they did that. I just think Indiana, their continuity, they ran pretty much the same team back. They had a great year last year, made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. No one saw that coming.
No.
Grim, hey, Indiana was a team that you have talked about since we started this podcast. And ever since they got Pascal Siakam, that pairing has been working out really, really good. I love this team that they have. I love Nemhart. I love Neesmith. I love Miles Turner. They're great players around Siakam and Halliburton and stuff. And the only reason why I really like Indiana a lot too, because Halliburton is their best player, but he doesn't need to score to show that he's the best player on the team.
You know what's
I
crazy?
like players like that.
Yeah. And in game one, like he only had 10 points, right?
Literally. Yeah.
But had 12 assists. I mean, he averaged almost 12 assists in this series because one of the things that we've talked about even last year was that Halliburton is the most unselfish point guard that we have seen in the NBA in a long time. Like he's the closest thing that we've seen to Magic Johnson in terms of like pass first point guard. We don't see that as much anymore. You could even argue Jason Kidd. Like Jason Kidd would probably be another one too, like where unselfish with the basketball.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, Real quick before I give it back to you. Like you said, the team itself, Nemhard has really. I actually think Nemhard has taken a step, a leap this year. I think he was one of their most consistent guys in this series. I felt like Nemhard was definitely a problem in game four. He had, and let me just grab this real quick because I watched a little bit of that game
Yeah.
and I just know that like every time Milwaukee was trying to like inch back into the game, like they just would not allow that to happen. Nemhard had 20 in game four. He was 4 of 8 from three. And also, here's another thing too. Did you know that Indiana shot an insane like 70% in the third quarter? Like they just couldn't miss. And it was just unfortunate because this is after Dame had already torn his Achilles. And you could just tell like Milwaukee was defeated in that game. They were trying everything they could to try and claw their way back into the game and make it interesting at the end. Um, but I think the fact is that your only win of the series was when Gary Trent gets you 37 points, an
Yep.
anomaly game for him. Not to say that Gary Trent can't do that, but in a series, if you're going to consistently trying to rely off of that, you are never going to win. Um, and I think that that was a huge issue for Milwaukee in the series, like you said. No consistent scoring outside of Giannis. And they were going to let Giannis score. I think Kyle Kuzma really proved that he just isn't as valuable as
He once was.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee thought that they were going to get another Chris Middleton type player that's able to be a second, third option on the team and scoring, and that's just not Kuzma. Middleton's a great mid-range player, able to hit the three. Kuzma is a very streaky player. I don't know how to describe him. He's athletic, but he's also uncoordinated.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm really surprised of how bad Milwaukee played, but they're also really old. Like if you look, it's like
A full
Brooke
rebuild.
Lopez. Yeah, Brooke Lopez, dude, he's ancient now. Like dude's 37 years old. Bobby Portis is a little bit older now. Giannis obviously at 30 years old. Kuzma's not that old. Torian Prince is starting to, get up there a little bit in age. But this is another old Milwaukee team. And
Mhm.
even though they got a little bit younger with some of these trades, getting Kevin, like a guy like Kevin Porter Jr. as well, I feel like this team just kind of felt like it's been falling apart for 2 years and they've been trying to salvage it every way. So do you feel like um we are not going to see Giannis in a Bucks uniform ever again?
Wow. Well, the front office is going to have to do some incredible work to put a better roster around this
Oh yeah.
offseason if they somehow can. Obviously, Dame is going to be gone for the majority of next season. Who knows when
Mhm.
he come back. That's a tough injury to come back from, and he won't be the same. He'll never be the same player again, just because of his age and everything now. But hopefully, he can at least be at least 80% of what he was,
Mhm.
80% of this Dame version. But if I was Giannis, I think it's time to go. You did everything you could in Milwaukee. You won a championship with them. You advanced in the playoffs. You made it to the conference finals. I think one or the only time they made the conference finals was when they beat Boston and won the
Yeah,
championship.
it
He
was
doesn't know that.
yeah.
He doesn't owe that city nothing no more, man. I think his journey in Milwaukee's over. And if he really wants to, you know, chase championships and stuff like
Mhm.
that, I don't think personally he'll ever win again in Milwaukee. I think they're just in a really, really bad situation. It's like you said, how old they are.
Mhm.
Dame's out. They traded a haul just to get him. They traded Drew Holiday and stuff. That ends up it's not looking too good right now.
Yeah, you
But
mean
that's
how good Boston looks compared to that, and
yeah, that's what I'm
even
saying.
even the Trailblazers, man, they're starting to put it together with Chauncey Billups, man. They might be a fringe playing team next year. We don't
Yeah,
know. They were close this year.
yeah, very, very interesting. But yeah, I don't know if you want to dive real quick into the Boston Orlando series.
Yeah, yeah, we can definitely dive into that one.
Yeah.
That one currently is Boston up 3-1. They are playing game five actually today. The game just started a little while ago. I'll actually pull up the score real quick just so we can just kind of get a insight right now. So currently Orlando's up by five, end of the first quarter, 24-19. Nick, I think with this series, and I'll let you take it from here. I think with this series, what I've noticed is like even though Boston in if you just were just looking at it in a box score situation, you would think, oh wow, Boston's not as good this year. Like they're losing to they're not beating the seven seed the way we would expect them to. But I think we also just have to give credit that Orlando's a really good defensive team.
Yeah. Not only that, they actually, I think, beat Boston. I don't know if it was every time they played them in the regular season, but they were over 500 against Boston on their schedule this regular season. So just like you said, they play them well. They do match up with them very well too. They Orlando has size. They have some young guys that are gonna willing to go out there and try to play their butts off defensively
Mhm.
and stuff like that. They're not afraid of nobody. I love their head coach. I know they had a down year this year because they had a much better year last season, but obviously Paulo got hurt to start the
Yeah.
year. 5 games. Franz Wagner was out. Like they were dealing with some massive injuries this year. The fact that they got out of the plan, they beat Boston once. A lot of people thought it was going to be a sweep, and even the games that they've lost, they've been close. They haven't been like blowouts or anything. They've been like single digit type games.
Yeah.
So Atlanta is hanging in there. So we got to give them credit for sure.
No, 100%. And the thing too is like Paulo Banchero has had a great series. He's averaging 32, 8 and 4. Um and even like Tatum missed game two. So like that was another thing too is like
That was
with the
serious.
wrist, right? It's like how much is this going to really affect Boston? Because I do feel like a team like Orlando, like you said, regular season, they were above 500 against Boston. They like this matchup against them. Orlando's not a good matchup for Boston just because of their size that they have. Franz Wagner, Batadze, Paulo Banchero, Mo Wagner, and then Wendell Carter Jr. as well. You have a lot of bigs on that team. I do think though one of the things that right now I think would actually help Orlando is and correct me if I'm wrong, just because I haven't been watching every game in this series, but Jalen Suggs still out?
Yes.
So because that's somebody that they could badly use right now. Because you're having Corey Joseph start in these games. No disrespect to Corey Joseph. But I do think if Jalen Suggs was playing in this series, it could be a little bit closer than what we've seen.
Yeah.
Um, I think Nick, it's just kind of obvious, but
Yeah.
Boston just needs to have Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Kristaps, Jalen Brown, Derek White play. As long as those as long as those guys play,
Yeah.
they're good. Like
And
they were going to take care of everybody, and even if like and also Drew Holiday, you have
yeah.
those six guys playing. and one of Peyton Pritchard or Sam Hauser just playing some minutes for you, like
Stud, dude. And we
it's
beat.
just it's insane.
Yeah, no, that's why it's like even a Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum, like if one of those guys have to miss a game, like they are very capable of still beating any team in the NBA, even if they are
Right.
Jalen Brown or something like that. That's the thing with Boston; they're so deep. Like Sam, like you look at the guys on their bench, like it's gonna be very interesting to see when these contracts start coming up because they paid their starting five. Like when paying Pritchard, when all these guys are free
Mhm.
agents, is it going to be like a Denver situation where like they're not going to be able to keep any of these role players because the salary
Yeah, I
cap
mean,
situation is that Payne Pritchard's going to get paid somewhere.
he
He's
just won. He just won. He just won
literally
six man
six
of the
man a
year.
year.
So
Congrats to him, man.
yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. These guys are going to be leaving for bigger bags. So like now what's going to happen with their team? I think they're going to win the championship this year. I still believe
I
Boston.
yeah, I don't think Boston has proven otherwise that they can't win a championship again this year, especially with we don't know who's going to come out of the West.
Yeah.
So that's yeah. And you are right. I do think like it could be a Denver situation with some of these like other role players they have. I know that they have locked down Drew Holiday, Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum. I think they also have Kate.
Has 2 years left.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
KP, they still have another year or two on him.
Yeah.
So their championship window is still going to be open. Like if they win this year, there's a possibility for a three-peat for them. Um, I also just think it's just dependent on the health. I think health is always one of the biggest factors. Obviously, like Jalen Brown's been having some knee issues this year. They've been injecting his knee. So things like that always become a factor in repeating or even three-peating. So we'll see in that sense. But I think Boston will either, if they don't win tonight, they'll take care of it in game six. I had them winning in five or six originally. I think you basically had the same thing. So we're not worried about Boston. But Nick, when we come back, we'll talk about the rest of the series. And then I have a question for you about something that was just talked about yesterday, in terms of sports media. And I just think it's just kind of something that really is funny. And it's a huge reason why we started this podcast. So we'll be right back, guys. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the second half of the episode. Nick, before we left, we were talking about the oh my God, I don't know. Losing my train of I'm so
Orlando
sorry.
Patriots.
I don't know why I'm losing my train of thought. We're talking about Boston, Orlando, and we were just talking about how that series is going to probably end either tonight or in game six. So we do have four series to still talk about,
Mhm.
and I think we can definitely talk about this one first. Let's talk about the Detroit and New York series. I think that this has been one of the most exciting series that we've seen. Detroit obviously
Yes.
being back in the playoffs for the first time since 2019 when they had Blake Griffin. Um, for the Knicks, it's another year of how far will Tom Thibodeau push all his guys to play before one of them breaks down on him? So, Nick, what have you thought of the series so far? I know we both had New York winning this series, but do you feel like it's gone the way you expected it to go? Or do you feel like the Knicks kind of have been exposed a little bit?
I think Detroit is actually playing a lot better than I thought they would. I just thought maybe like their lack of experience would catch up to them. Even though they are down 3-1 technically, they are. But
Right.
like these games have been very, very competitive. And I know we'll definitely at some point get into was that a foul on Josh Hart on that jump shot in the corner?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it should have been called, but again, it is playoff basketball, and they've been letting a lot of stuff go, especially in this series, man. They've been letting a lot of
Hmm.
stuff go, like but yeah, obviously, just like you said with Tom Thibodeau, like Jalen Brunson's been exiting games, but coming back, still balling in the fourth. We've seen two different versions of Cat has looked good in certain games, and then he's a no-show. Kind of like how he was in Minnesota, and we talked about that a lot with Carl Anthony Towns, last season and stuff like that. So, but yeah, this series has been a very physical, one of the best series to watch, most intriguing in the Eastern Conference for me for sure, you know. But I just feel so bad for Detroit fans, man. I thought there should have been a foul call there. I wish there was a way they could review that. It's just very unfortunate to see referees, not just in the game of basketball, we see in all sports, man, where calls that should be made aren't, or there is a legit blown call in critical moments that just ruins the ending for us as fans.
Yeah, yeah. Don't disagree with you on that. That call itself, when I first watched it, I thought, okay, marginal contact. I watched it again and I do see where the foul is. Like, yes, Josh Hart definitely jumped into him. And I just think it's like one of those bang bang plays where refs get this wrong a lot. I just don't know when they're going to consider it a foul, when they're not going to consider it a foul. But I definitely do think that was a foul that was missed. Clearly, that would have been three shots right there, and they only needed two to win that game. So one of the most unfortunate parts about this is that you can't replay you can't challenge that. And that was a conversation we did have
Mm-hmm.
too about how in those moments, if you did give a team the ability to challenge that, I feel like you're going to challenge every outcome of a close game. Like it just to me, it's like sometimes it's really it sucks in these moments because you feel like a team gets robbed. However, every team's going to feel like they got robbed by the refs. So then you're just never going to have a game just end. Like it's going to always be questioned or challenged because we see with the players already. Every time they feel like they got fouled or they get in their feelings about something, what do?
Oh
Right?
yeah, yeah.
And I watch some of these plays. I'm like, why are you going to challenge this? Like there was like that wasn't a foul. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was just good defense. Or that was blocked. That was a clean block. Refs obviously get this stuff wrong where they call a foul and it really wasn't a foul, or vice versa. They don't call the foul and it actually was a foul, right? And we've seen this with the officiating, especially in this series too. The last two games, low key, like the Knicks could have lost both those games.
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie to you. The backcourt explanation they gave to JB in game three, like had him like look flabbergasted. I felt like he was like, wait, I've never heard that before. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Like, could Detroit be up 3-1 in this series? Because like
They
they've gotten
could.
screwed twice.
Yeah. No, they could for sure, but this is just a learning curve for
Mhm.
Detroit. I think it's gonna be too hard to beat the next 3 games in a row,
Right,
especially with Knicks having home court, so you would have to go to New York twice to get it done.
right.
Um,
They're
but
up by four right now, by the way.
who New York or Detroit?
Detroit's up by four right now in New York, with 2:52 left in the third quarter.
Okay.
So it's
Well,
gonna be another
that's
close
something.
close
Teams have been
finish.
super competitive. They've been nail biting games, and that's the playoff basketball games that we want to see. We don't want to see those blowouts. We want to see games like it's like March Madness, man. The majority of the games come down to the wire. March Madness, man. Especially those last 4 or 5 minutes. It's a possession or two game, and we just want to witness good basketball at the end and see who just executes better down the stretch. But to what you said about not being able to like challenge that, I do agree with you because teams would just want to challenge every single last play of every game,
Mhm.
but they might view it the opposing way, which is, I know it's a different series, but the Lakers Minnesota game,
Mhm.
Ron thought he had a clean strip on Anthony Edwards. The ball
Right.
did go on his knee and went out of bounds. Anthony Edwards immediately
Mhm.
review, and he goes, "We're not reviewing who is off of. We're reviewing the foul." And when you check the replay, LeBron clearly fouled him.
Yeah, he hit his wrist. Right.
Chris,
Yeah.
it's funny how he says in this
Oh, the interview.
the hands part of the ball will do if you hit the hand first, it's a foul. It's like you hit the ball first and you follow through with the
Mhm.
hand. You didn't hit the ball first. You hit the hand first, it's a foul. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Yeah,
There's a couple. There's a
there was
couple
a
plays I
way.
want to talk about in that
Yeah,
series too, for sure.
no, for sure. I just wish that there was a way to like not be able to review every single late call per
Mhm.
se, but maybe a play like that at the end. Potentially, like if there's a
Right.
potential foul there or
Right.
something, maybe there has to be I don't know how they'd be able to do that, how they'd be able to manage
Because
something
that's
like
what I was
that.
gonna. I was just about to say that to you too. It's
No,
kind of
because
like
I feel like Detroit should have won that game. He would have gone to the free throw
I
line,
agree with you. I
making the
don't
lead
I don't
two,
disagree.
but I get you at the same time though. That's why it's so hard, But great series overall. But it seems like New York is gonna win the series. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's all I have to say about that one.
I mean, I just want to add a couple more points, just because I know we were talking about the last play of game four. Just like you said, Cat, uh, the only game he did not show up in was the game they lost, ironically. He played amazing in game four. I
Yeah.
mean, he hit a step back three I did not expect to even go in. He just like he went off.
Mhm.
Uh, in terms of a defender, I still don't think he's a good defender. I do think that he's going to get exposed against Boston. I think that's going to be one of the clear things that we are going to see a problem with in that matchup when they do play Boston in the
And
next
New York's
round.
been cooked.
That's why I think that's why I think they're going to lose in five. I mean,
They're gonna get cooked.
that team is so Jalen Brunson eccentric. The fact that he had to come back in the game,
Mhm.
even with his ankle, uh, that ankle that he already had tweaked prior to the playoffs, missed 15 games,
Yeah.
had to come back in, still played great even
Mhm.
after that. But you could tell he was not the same, you know.
100%.
And
Mhm.
something that I texted you about too is that Cat, this is the perfect situation for him because he doesn't have to be the main guy on this team. He
Mhm.
never wanted to be the main guy in Minnesota. He always wanted to be like that co-star. That's why
Yeah.
Ant works perfectly, but Ant's an unselfish star. Like he doesn't like he'll take over when he needs to, but like Cat never wanted that. And I think in New York it works because he can play off the ball. He doesn't want the ball in his hands. He'll do whatever he needs to when it's asked upon him.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if we're ever going to see a version of Cat that I think we expected to see when he got drafted.
Yeah.
And I think that, if the Knicks end up being like some of the greatest seasons of his career,
Yeah.
it might be without a ring. Like, I just don't know what New York can do based on their limited contract situation.
Not only
What
that,
are
they
they
have no
gonna
draft capital now.
What are they gonna? Yeah, I was gonna say all those draft picks they gave up for Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
This team is kind of stuck with where it's at. I don't know what moves you can make to make them better because defensively they're going to have to hide Cat's inefficiencies.
100%, especially in that series against Boston because Boston jacks up a lot of threes
Hmm.
in 40 of the games. They make a shit ton of them. So the games that they lose, the games that Boston loses, they just have horrific shooting nights. You have to pray that they have horrific shooting nights 4 out of 7 games. I just don't
Yeah,
see it. I just don't see it at all. And you can have Drew Holiday guarding Jalen Brunson the entire series. You could throw different guys at Brunson. Jalen Brown can play defense. What Tatum feels like playing defense, he could play defense. Like they have a lot of guys that they could throw at Brunson. And just like you said, it's gonna be hard to hide Cat's defensive deficiencies when you have a guy like Kristaps Porzingis that can light it up from the perimeter.
right. And we saw him expose two pretty good defensive centers on Dallas last postseason. So I just think that like that's gonna be really hard. Like that's gonna be a bad matchup for Cat. And just because he's not a rim defender to begin with, they're gonna eat him alive down there. And they can't play Mitchell Robinson over a certain amount of minutes. I mean, he's averaging like between 15 to 20 minutes in these games. So it's like, how many minutes are you gonna have him play in that series? Because offensively, he's not gonna do anything for you.
No.
So that's another thing too. Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Cade Cunningham, man. That dude is a beast.
Yeah.
Obviously needs a second co-star. I know Jaden Ivey was hurt this year. We'll have to see how Jaden Ivey does in a playoff situation because I think that we've seen that with some of these guys that have just, like Ozzer Thompson has been shaky
Yeah.
in these playoffs, but another guy too is Jalen Green. He has been awful besides game two. Um,
Yeah. That was good
so
for him, too.
we'll have to see. But Cade man, like he's for real. He's for real, man. Like that dude, he's a beast.
100%.
Um, Nick, since you had to bring up the Ant Edwards situation, we'll talk about that series next. So the Lakers and Wolves series. Do you want to apologize first? Do you want me to apologize first? You know, we can go either way.
Do it as a group. All I'm gonna say is, boy, was I wrong. Holy shit, was I wrong about the Lakers. And what I knew, what we talked about as soon as this trade went down with Luka, we both said if they don't get a center, they're cooked. The Lakers are gonna be cooked this year. We went against our own word because the last 7 weeks of the season, the Lakers were actually number one in defensive rating. They were actually number one, you
Yeah.
know. And we saw what they were the last 7 weeks. They go, holy crap, they play like this. They could go to the
Yeah.
NBA finals, especially how they always beat Oklahoma in the regular season for the most part. I think they beat them 3 out of 4. I know they were over 500 against Oklahoma this season too. And and having two guys like Luka, LeBron that could dominate a game at any point. Like when you have two guys like that, man, it's just hard to beat a team 4 out of 7 games when you have two monsters like that. And we talked about the Lakers role players, how much they stepped up, man. Doherty, Finney-Smith, they have a lot of good role wing players. And Austin Reeves was the third wheel, dropping 20 a game. The Lakers had 3 guys on their team scoring 20 points or more per season. I don't think there's any other team that had that. So when we looked at it from that perspective, was like, dude, they could literally make a run. Like if they're gonna make a run, it's now because LeBron is gonna be retiring at some point.
Yeah, no, he definitely is.
Now
He
or never.
definitely is. Yeah.
And I just feel like Minnesota's way more athletic.
Hmm.
They have more size.
Yep.
They have the experience. A lot of people talked about in the beginning of the series how Minnesota didn't have much experience going into this thing, but they made the conference finals last year. Julius Randle had plenty of experience in the playoffs with the Knicks. I understand he hasn't played well in the postseason in his career overall. I gotta give him credit in this playoff series. He's been playing very well for Minnesota
He's
right
he has been amazing,
very
dude. He's
well.
shooting 56% from three. I
I'm
mean, that
saying
is
balling.
ridiculous.
He's balling, and obviously Rudy Gobert. Let me say this about Rudy Gobert. We talked so much shit about Rudy Gobert, and we thought that Minnesota was going to change their strategy to bring a double whenever Rudy's guarding Luka or Rudy's guarding LeBron on the island or whatever. But
Hmm.
no, they're staying intact. And Rudy is actually playing very, very well defensively on the perimeter, making it tough, making it as tough as he can, obviously. And what's happening in this series is like Luka and LeBron, they've been going off in first halves of these games,
Hmm.
and then they burn out in the second half. Like I just think it was wild to see JJ Redick play their starting five going into the second half of that game. No substitutions. And let me tell you this about Nico Harrison. He was right about one thing about Luka. He's not in shape. He's not in shape. You see how many layups that guy missed? And you see how the turnovers and LeBron only taking 2 shot attempts in the fourth quarter. And you turn over the ball when you got to inbound the ball. You turn over the ball. You, LeBron James of all people. And then you miss that. You take a horrible 3-point attempt, like you mentioned, when it was about a minute to go in that game and such.
Hmm.
And Luka can't guard a cone. You watch these games, Luka
No,
cannot guard
he's
anybody,
never been a defender.
and he's never been that. But how Dallas was able to hide that is to have legit defensive bigs.
Well, and that's the one thing that I wanted to talk about too.
Yeah.
I'll say it first. I think the biggest problem with sports media is nobody can ever stick to their damn take anymore. And I love how every single person that works for ESPN, for Fox, for any other sports network, Nico Harrison's an idiot. We don't know why he did this. Luka is a top 5 player in the league. He's gonna show them so wrong. Now they're starting to say, "Oh, Nico Harrison, I see the vision, man." Like Dude, come on, bro. This guy's still averaging 30 plus points in this series. Who are we
100%.
kidding right now? Like,
Yeah.
I
No, for
I
sure.
understand. And like again, I understand. I don't disagree with Nico Harrison about this. Defense is important, and it does help win championships. You cannot though fault everything on Luca in this series because
But
I think one of the biggest issues is your best defender has been a 40-year-old LeBron James. You have no rim defender, which we didn't think was going to be a big issue, but here's why. We thought Julius Randle was going to play the way he has in New York, where he plays back to the basket, takes stupid like mid-range shots, ill-advised, right?
yeah,
Um, but he has not been doing that. He's been playing really aggressive, driving to the hole, knowing that there's nobody that's going to block his shot, taking his time. He's shooting the three very efficiently. And um, something I also did want to add too is that like Jaden McDaniels, right, in game one and game three, this guy came alive. He played amazing. Even in game four, in the second half, he really started to like show up again. Um, but I just felt like it was, I'm not gonna lie to you, I really felt like game one was an anomaly for him shooting. In game three, I felt it was like the 30 points. I'm like, he's not gonna do that again. Like I just don't think Jaden McDaniels is that consistent with scoring, but he's been amazing for them as well. Obviously, like you can slow down Luca, you can't fully stop him. Uh so that's been like another interesting thing. That's been a matchup where we've seen a lot of chippiness start, tripping, pushing, shoving. Rudy Gobert obviously, throwing his elbow into LeBron,
yeah,
calling him a bitch, and then LeBron saying, "I'm gonna beat your ass." Like,
yeah,
um, yeah, I mean, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Denver series last year, where the Lakers were up every game. And then if Denver wanted to take them serious, all they had to do was start playing a little bit harder and they would come back and win the game. And even though Minnesota's not winning that same way where it was like Jamal Murray buzzer beaters to
yeah,
beat them, in game three and game four, the biggest things that we saw was the Lakers' inability to score at the end of the game because everybody is tired because JJ Redick is keeping out the same lineup of DFS, Roy, LeBron, Reeves, and Luca.
yeah,
Not to say that is a terrible lineup. However, you can tell that Minnesota has fresh legs in the game. I know Ant's playing a lot of minutes, but that's just Ant, right? They're subbing in Nas, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle. Like they're spreading their minutes around.
oh yeah,
And I will say this though with Rudy, I know he's played a little bit more than we expected, but I actually think that the minutes he's on the floor, the Lakers do better. And then when Nas reads in the game and they're a little bit smaller and they're able to really spread the ball, those are the minutes where they're really killing the Lakers.
yeah,
And that's been one of the bigger issues too. Yeah, man. The center, like you said, bro, it is one of the things that is haunting the Lakers. But I just think it's because we thought that the players we wouldn't expect to play this well are actually playing well, and that is what's really killing the Lakers. But they've been in every single game besides game one. Game
yeah,
one, after the third quarter, they were cooked.
100%.
Game three and game four, they had leads in both of those games. They blew those leads. They're not able to hold the lead. And it's a lot of turnovers. That's another thing too.
Yeah.
The turnover thing has been horrendous for them. But do you think if they win tomorrow, could they actually force a game seven? Like, because I feel like every other series is kind of like, even if the other team wins tonight, like, do we really feel like they're gonna push a game seven? Like,
I don't think so. The only reason is I just think Minnesota, they're just more athletic.
mhm,
They, they're deeper. And I think the Lakers just rely on Luca and LeBron so much to carry such a big load. Um, I just don't see it, man. I think the Lakers actually do win
mhm,
Game 5. I think once it comes back to Minnesota, I think it's wraps. I think that's a hostile environment to play in.
mhm,
It seems like the role players play so much better when they're at home there.
mhm.
Anthony Edwards, man, just dude, I got to be honest with you, man. I think Anthony Edwards is a top five player in the NBA now. I think
Oh,
he's a
hands down. If he
yeah.
if he wins this series, man, like he's gonna just show. I mean, he beat KD and Booker last year, beat Jokic. Obviously didn't have enough to beat the Dallas Mavericks last year. Then goes in this year, beats LeBron and Luca. I think that they could beat either Houston or Golden State. I don't think either of those teams have a chance against the
Might see Minnesota in the
Timberwolves.
conference finals again.
I think it's a very high. It's very likely if they beat the Lakers,
Yeah.
either if they don't even if it's not tomorrow, if they win Game 6, I think OKC and Minnesota is a very likely conference finals. And the reason why is because
Yeah.
Ant is a bad motherfucker. That's why.
Yes. Yeah. And if Julius Randle keeps playing like this, they
If
should have
that's
no issue beating the winner of Golden State and Houston. Well, it's gonna be Golden State. I think it's gonna be good.
It's going to
Yeah.
be Golden State. Houston ain't coming back 3-1. They blew their chance yesterday. Let's talk about that series since we're on the conversation. Houston blew that game yesterday. You
Yeah.
missed 12 free throws. You don't deserve to win. Um,
100%.
you have to, and this is one thing I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Draymond Green proved again yesterday why he's still a really good defender in this league
Yep.
because of how he bothered Alperen Sengun's last shot attempt of that game. And I didn't think that that was the correct call of putting in Alperen Sengun. I would have put it in Fred VanVleet's hand. That dude was hot from three.
Cooking.
I think he had a better chance of getting you that game-winning shot than putting it in Alperen Sengun's hand. Not to say that it was a bad play, but you were playing against Draymond, and every time Draymond has played against you, he always bothers your shot.
Yeah.
So, Nick, what do you think about that?
Well, no, I mean, I completely agree with you, man. Fred VanVleet looked like the finals from Toronto. Fred VanVleet, the one that
Yep.
got him money to leave Toronto to go to Houston. That was probably the best game of his career in Houston, to be honest with you. I can't recall a game since he's been in a Rockets uniform. His game has taken a dive because
Hmm.
there are a lot of options on this team scoring wise. Jalen Green had a phenomenal year this year. Sagunis
Yeah.
had a phenomenal year this year. Stuff like that. But I would have put the ball at Fred VanVleet's hand for sure. I know they were able to get a shot off at the end with him. I know he airballed at the end of the game, but that was just a circus shot. He was just lucky that Golden State didn't foul him because it was a 3-point game. They should have fouled him. So he was only able to shoot 2 free throws, especially a guy that hit 8 threes. You don't want him getting an opportunity to tie that game. I don't care how difficult the shot is.
Yeah.
He was the whole game, stuff like that. But man, Jalen Green has been a huge disappointment in this playoffs, man. I understand it's his first playoff, series and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I know it's going against a very veteran team, things like that. But notice how the only game he played well in was the game that Jimmy Butler couldn't play in. Every other game he's been in single digits, 7 points, 8 points, 9 points. A guy that's averaged I think he averaged about 24 a game this year. He was killing it in the regular season. And the fact that this game has taken such a dive like this just raises questions to, okay, Houston knows they're a young team and they are a
Hmm.
piece of land. Are they going to be in the Kevin Durant market? And if so, are they going to trade Jalen Green? Is he going to be a part of that deal?
I mean, if I were Houston and I could get Kevin Durant and all I have to give is Jalen Green and some draft capital,
Yeah.
I would.
They might ask for
I
Thompson.
mean, that's the
Yeah.
one player I'm not giving up though.
I'm not giving up.
I'll give you Jalen Green, Tari Eason, even throw in
Dylan
Jabari,
Brooks,
even
too.
Dylan Brooks or Jabari Smith Jr. I'd throw in those players because the guys that I want on that team with Kevin Durant is Amon Thompson, Fred VanVleet, Alperen Sengun. You can build around, however you'd like with everybody else. But if you got to give up a couple pieces to get Kevin Durant and have an opportunity to win a championship, with that core, then do it. Um,
Yeah.
because Jalen Green, man, I just think that I think he's I think this is something though that we talked about is that Houston doesn't have a closer. They don't have somebody that can really because again, yesterday we didn't know who that last shot was going to go to. And I think that it's hard to give it to a big man nowadays just because we've been come so accustomed to the guard taking the last shot or you have a point forward. like a KD or an Ant Edwards, taking that last shot for you. Um, I just think that Jalen Green has just been exposed for being a regular season player. I think that there are just some guys that don't play well in the postseason because the game slows down. You're playing more at a half court set. You're not playing up and down where you can just chuck up 53s. I mean, I'm gonna say that like in a lot of these like series, dude, I have not seen scores like this where like teams are scoring 80, 90
Yeah.
points, right? Like but winning in that fashion too. Like we haven't seen that
Crazy.
since like the mid 2010s to like the early 2000s. And even then like those games would go like 60 to 70. Like those would be the final scores and we're seeing that in these playoffs. Like that's how intense these playoffs have been.
And I know like one of the reasons why we both picked Golden State to win this series is because not only the experience levels that Golden State has compared to Houston's, but Houston was one of the worst free throw shooting teams all year, and they were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams all year. When you're playing a team like the Warriors, you got to hit your free throws when you get to the line, and you got to knock down some threes when you're open.
Oh,
You know,
100,
besides
percent
Van Fleet,
100%.
nobody's able to knock down threes. And
Yeah.
not only, I just think it's kind of funny. Whatever player that Dylan Brooks starts talking shit to, that player ends up cooking. Not just Dylan Brooks, but just the team. Like, he's talking shit to Jimmy Butler. Even Jimmy Butler, just like you said, the injury was definitely bothering him. The man had about 30 points last night. He was perfect from the free throw line too. That played a big part of it. He got to the free throw line a lot, stuff like that too. But like, I just think it's so funny. Like when Dylan Brooks was talking crap about LeBron, then the Lakers beat them by 40 that one year.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. I don't respect nobody until they give me
Dylan
40.
Brooks is he just always barks at the wrong tree.
I feel like you should learn from Grant Williams' mistake of saying anything to Jimmy. Don't say nothing, man. You're just gonna piss this guy off and give him a reason to like cook. Yeah, no, Jimmy, dude, Jimmy, after that situation,
Yeah.
Jimmy was the best player for Golden State. Something that I do, I know Steph had a great game three, and I don't want to like discredit anything he's done. Just something I've noticed with Steph over his career is there were a couple times yesterday he had a chance to ice the game, like actually like either put them up or like if they're up one, put the game away. And I feel like that's been something that really has plagued Steph his whole career. I do think that like he's great at sealing a game when they're already up by like more than 2 or 3 points and like just like making sure they stay like you're not coming back or if they've been down tying the game. Like I think he's great at tying the game or getting them like right back in the game because he hits some clutch threes. But in this series, something I've noticed is that, in the fourth quarter, the guy that's actually putting, them in a situation is Jimmy. Because we saw in game two, Jimmy Butler not being there. Like you said, Jalen Green has 38 points, right? But also, you saw the Warriors prior to Jimmy Butler, a team that is reliant off of Steph Curry, and they don't have anybody else that can really give you that production. And yesterday, what we saw was Brandon Pozemski and Buddy Hield played two of them, both of them had great games.
Yep.
And I just think that even though Steph is great, and I might be a Warriors hater. Um, I just think that at this point, Steph really cannot be the only guy on this team. You have to have somebody that can either put that same or even more level of intensity and get you like those points because you're not going to get them from Draymond and you're not going to get them from some of these role players consistently. So Jimmy has been I, I think it's just one of the biggest shockers of like how good he's actually been for this team. We really didn't think that they were going to be more than a first round exit, I think, when that trade happened. But the fact that they're about to make it to the second round with Jimmy is like,
Yep.
a round of applause for Golden State and like their ability to make it work.
Yeah. No, I
Anything
completely.
anything else you want to cover about this series, Ben, before we go to the next one?
No, no, not at all. I think we both said some really good points about this series, and give credit to Rockets on a great year. if they do get eliminated, they had a good year. And obviously Golden State with Steph and Jimmy, like they could compete, man. They could beat anybody um, outside of Oklahoma. But I think they could beat anybody else in the Western Conference. I just think that experience level that they have, having two closers like that, like Steph and Jimmy Butler, you know, it's just huge to have that experience on your side in these games, man. So um, that's my take on that. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to start diving into the Clippers and
Nuggets. Yeah.
that series has been really really good.
That's probably been the best series in terms of just like overall excitement, just the level of intensity that we've seen. I mean, Aaron Gordon wanted to kill James Harden in game 4 for something that started with Christian Braun on a
Yeah,
common foul too. It was nothing even crazy, but
yeah,
um I think yeah, honestly, outside of game 3, where the Clippers just blew out the Nuggets, this has been a close series. And it's funny because last game they didn't even have Westbrook. So, Nick, biggest surprises for you in this series? What is the key for either team in this series to, because it's 2-2. They are playing tonight. What is the key in order for either team to win this series, and who do you have still? Do you still like, I know you said Denver.
yeah. I
So,
still have Denver. I just trust Jokic, man. I just trust him that they get this done. And um, I just I think the Clippers do have the better overall roster. I do, but I just believe in Jamal Murray and Jokic and Aaron Gordon, and they've won a championship and all that stuff. I'm just going with that.
mhm.
Like James Harden and stuff. Like we never know which James Harden we're gonna get. And stuff like that. So I think in order for Denver to win, just keep doing what they're doing, man. If they're not going to double Jokic, let them go for 40. Let them go for 40. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Stuff like that. I think as long as some players start knocking down threes at a decent enough clip for Denver, I think that's the key for them. They got to be able to knock down some threes when they're open, man. Because I know in the regular season they really struggled with that a lot,
Mhm.
stuff like that too. But I think if and Murray shows up big time, if Porter can knock down some threes, and other role players like Eric Gordon has actually shot 40% from three this season too. In the regular season, he really improved on his 3-point game. So him and Christian Braun, like these guys, I think as long as Jokic and Murray do their thing and they get like a consistent third from somebody, like 17 plus points, no matter if it's Porter, no matter if it's Braun, they need a consistent third guy, then I feel like they could win this series for sure. So I'm still going with Denver.
Good points. I do agree with you that we don't know what James Harden we're gonna ever see in the playoffs. And just looking at the last couple of games too, 15, 18 point. Not like they're not like games that are going to get you home, right? I think that for Denver, I think this has been the most challenging series that they've had in terms of who outside of Jokic is going to be the second option for them. And I know Jamal's been solid, not to say that he's been bad. I think that there's just been a lot of turmoil this year, like we talked about last episode, with Mike Malone getting fired, just kind of the season just seeming like it was just spiraling out of control, and playing a really hot Clippers team as well. Kawhi's been great this series. He's just turned back into 2019 Kawhi. Dude has been unstoppable, but the moment that he gets hurt, this team would lose instantly. Like I don't. That's how good he has been. That every game is like you feel like they could win this because Kawhi is just shooting the lights out of the ball. His field goal percentage, I think, in game like 2 or 3 was like an insane. Like it was like 70 something percent. The guy like missed like 3 shots or something, like 70-80%, like basically what KD and Booker were doing to Denver 2 years ago, where they shot 80%, and that was the reason why they won 2 games.
Yeah.
um like you also said, uh I trust Jokic in this situation. I think that it was huge that they won game 4. I think it was really good win for them. I think it was just kind of like very emotional. Obviously, in the first half with the James Harden situation and that whole altercation that happened there, winning it off of a buzzer beater, off of an Aaron Gordon putback, I think really put them in a position where today you're at home, you get Westbrook back because he is expected to play, I think, tonight. And you're going to likely be up 3-2 going back to LA. As long
Yeah,
as you can take care of business tonight, I think, like you said, I there's not a lot of like the Clippers are the deeper team,
yeah,
but the best player in the series still is Nikola Jokic, and I just don't see where they're going to end up losing 2 out of 3 to this
yeah.
team. But I will say that whoever wins tonight likely will be the one that wins the series. It just depends, but I do think that Denver's got a good chance going into tonight.
And real quick, too, last thing I'll say about I didn't get a chance to say my keys for the Clippers.
Hmm.
If James Harden's going to only score like 15, 18, if he's going to just have a decent game, not a great
Hmm.
game, Norman Powell's got to be the guy. And I
Right.
know the last couple of games he's had multiple 20 plus point games. I think he had 20 and 22 to be exact. But if you could get that kind of production from Norman Powell and Kawhi
Hmm.
Leonard keeps doing what he's been doing, James Harden only needs to be that facilitating point guard. He doesn't need to be that scoring point
It's
guard.
true.
If they could get contribution from somebody besides Kawhi Leonard from the scoring aspect. And the Clippers, they actually have not been getting much bench points in this series either. Like Bogdanovich really hasn't been much. Batum really hasn't done much. Batum's knocked down some big threes early in the series,
Hmm.
but other than that, like your stars are your starters. Like Zubac and Norman Powell got a ball for this Clippers team to have a shot to win the series.
Oh, 100%. No, Norman Powell needs to be the one that definitely steps up. I agree with you on that. I think that their bench, I just don't think that they have outside of Bogdanovich, like they don't have a guy that really scares me in terms of scoring. And then you're playing Ben Simmons as your backup center, so you know you're not getting any scoring out of him. Maybe you get some good defensive stops, but that's about it. Yeah, I think those are some good points though, Nick. And just wanted to say, guys, thank you if you've watched all the way to the end of this episode. We apologize for the last cutoff before we ended the episode. Just had some technical difficulties. Uh, guys, thank you again for listening to the All Ball No Foul podcast. Me and Nick really do appreciate every time you guys listen to this. And any suggestions or topics that you guys want to hear about in the future, if you want to come on to the podcast yourself, just reach out to us via either Twitter, Snapchat, or not DM, but actually DM if you want. Yeah, direct message, text us. Just reach out to us. Let us know. We always appreciate feedback. Anything that we can be doing better. We appreciate you guys listening on this playoff edition of All Ball No Foul. And for Nick and for myself, thank you guys for listening. Have a good rest of your night. We will be back soon to talk the second round once all these matchups end. So stay tuned. We'll have some more content for you guys shortly.